Hello, this is the Bible History School. In our Bible History School, we summarize the words of the 66 books of the Old and New Testaments and upload them as short videos every day. It makes it much easier to understand the text and overall flow of the Bible. The Old Testament has 39 books and 929 chapters. The New Testament has 27 books and 260 chapters. And the 66 books of the Old and New Testaments have a total of 1,189 chapters. It takes 1,189 days to read one chapter of the Bible every day. If you just read the Bible, there are many parts that are difficult to read and understand. So, we summarized the key contents of each chapter and created short videos. It is much easier to understand the content if you watch the appropriate videos together than if you just read the sentences. We made it into easy sentences, middle and high school students can easily understand. Not only students but also ordinary people who have a hard time reading the Bible due to their busy daily lives. It is good for them to meditate on one chapter of the Bible every day. I hope you will encourage your children, parents, friends, and neighbors to read the Bible. In addition, the Bible History School is currently serializing Revelation and World History with great acclaim. We would appreciate it if you could subscribe together. Your support and encouragement have given us a lot of strength in producing Bible a Day in Revelation and World History. Thank you very much. 1 Kings, Chapter 1. Solomon becomes king. As King David grew old and frail, his son Adonijah expressed his ambition to become king. Adonijah secretly secured the support of Joab, the commander of the army, and Abiathar the priest. He then declared his succession to the throne and held a grand banquet. But the prophet Nathan informed David through Bathsheba that Adonijah was dreaming of rebellion. David then resolved to officially establish Solomon as his successor. David commanded Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet to anoint Solomon as king of Israel. Thus, Solomon was anointed at Gihon and crowned the new king. Upon hearing this news, Adonijah's supporters scattered in confusion. To save his life, Adonijah grabbed the horns of the altar and begged Solomon for mercy. Solomon sent Adonijah home after receiving a promise from him that he would never again plot rebellion. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings, Chapter 2. King David's will and death. King David, facing his death, left an important message to his son Solomon. He encouraged Solomon to be strong and become a man of courage. He also urged Solomon to faithfully keep God's commands. David promised that, if he obeyed God's word, he would prosper wherever he went. And David instructed Solomon how to deal with those who had done evil to him in the past. He also gave detailed instructions to those who should repay the favor. Specifically, he instructed Solomon not to overlook the sins of Joab and Shimei. He also instructed Solomon to show favor to the sons of Barzillai, who had helped David in times of need. King David passed away and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. He ruled Israel faithfully for 40 years. 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. After David's death, Solomon rightfully inherited his father's throne. Solomon executed the traitors, including Adonijah, Joab, and Shimei, according to David's will. Israel became more and more established under Solomon. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings, chapter 3. Solomon seeks wisdom. Solomon entered into a political marriage with the daughter of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and settled in the city of David. The Israelites of that time offered sacrifices at the high places in each region. Among them, the Gibeon high place in Israel was the largest and most important. King Solomon truly loved God and faithfully followed the laws of his father David. However, King Solomon could not completely stop offering sacrifices at the high places with the people. One day, Solomon offered a sincere sacrifice to God at Gibeon. That night, God appeared to Solomon in a dream and asked him what he most desired. Solomon, without hesitation, asked God for wisdom. He asked for a wise heart that could judge the people justly and discern between good and evil. God was deeply moved by Solomon's humble request. So, God promised Solomon not only wisdom and intelligence, but also wealth and glory, which he had not asked for. Awakening from his dream, Solomon returned to Jerusalem and offered burnt offerings and thank offerings. King Solomon also held a magnificent feast for all his officials. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings, chapter 3-2. Solomon's judgment. One day, two women came to King Solomon and appealed for judgment. They both gave birth to sons, but one woman's baby was crushed to death while sleeping. She then claimed the living baby was her own. She claimed that the woman who had killed the baby had switched it with another woman's living son. King Solomon thought for a moment and then ordered a sword to be brought. He then ordered that the baby be cut in half and given to each woman. Then, the real mother begged Solomon to give the baby to another woman instead. On the other hand, the false mother agreed to split the baby in half. King Solomon, recognizing the real mother's heartache, ruled that the baby should be returned to its birth mother. When all Israel heard this, they were amazed at Solomon's wise judgment. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings, chapter 4. The glory of King Solomon. King Solomon appointed officials who had served since the time of David as his royal officials. Azariah the priest, Elihoreph and Ahijah the scribes, Jehoshaphat the recorder, and Benaiah, the commander of the army, were among the key officials. Solomon divided Israel into 12 administrative districts. King Solomon assigned the responsibility for supplying royal supplies to each provincial official. Each provincial official in Israel was to supply royal food for 1 month each year. During Solomon's reign, Israel prospered with a growing population. The territory of his rule extended to the borders of Philistia and Egypt. And the people enjoyed a peaceful life, thanks to tribute from neighboring countries. Solomon's wisdom was widely known throughout the surrounding nations, and many came to hear his wisdom. His proverbs and songs were countless, and he possessed a profound knowledge of all things natural. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings, chapter 5. Solomon prepares to build the temple. After Solomon ascended to the throne, King Hiram of Tyre sent a congratulatory envoy to continue the friendly relations that had existed since the time of David. Solomon requested cedar and fir trees from Lebanon for the temple. Hiram was delighted and readily agreed to provide them. Solomon responded by providing grain for Hiram's court. This cooperation became a crucial foundation for the temple's construction. Solomon mobilized a large workforce for the temple's construction. He sent 30,000 Israelites to Lebanon to cut down trees. He also hired 70,000 porters and 80,000 stonecutters. Solomon's temple construction was a process of preparing a place to worship God. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 6. Solomon builds the temple. King Solomon led the Israelites in building the temple of God. The construction of the temple began in the second month of the 4th year of Solomon's reign. It took 7 years to complete the temple. The temple measured 60 cubits in length, 20 cubits in width, and 30 cubits in height, and was covered with gold. The interior of the temple was elaborately clad with high-quality cedar. The floor of the temple was also laid with cypress boards, adding to its beauty. The Holy of Holies in particular was 20 cubits long and 20 cubits wide. Inside the Holy of Holies, 2 cherubim with outstretched wings were placed to cover the ark. Doors made of olive and cypress wood were installed inside the temple, adding to its grandeur. In the 8th month of the 11th year of King Solomon's reign, the construction of the temple was finally completed. The temple became a sublime and beautiful place, revealing God's glory to the world. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 7. Solomon's palace. King Solomon spent 13 years building his palace. The palace of the tree of Lebanon was 100 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. It had 45 rooms, and the windows were arranged in 3 tiers. All the doors and doorposts were square. The porch had 50 pillars, and there were pillars in front of the wall. He also built a judgment seat, a room for judging, and covered it with pine wood, from the floor to the beams. The palace, where the king resided, was in another courtyard. Solomon built another palace for Pharaoh's daughter. All these buildings were built of costly and large stones. Then, Hiram the Tyrian made bronze pillars, bronze basins, bronze stands, a cart, and a laver for the temple, among other bronze articles. These vessels were large and elaborate, intended for the purity and order of the temple. Solomon finally completed the production of all the vessels needed for the temple of the Lord and dedicated them. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 8. Moving the Ark of the Covenant to the temple. King Solomon summoned the elders and tribal leaders of Israel. He then moved the Ark of the Covenant from the city of David to the temple in Jerusalem. The Israelites gathered during the 7th month of the year to move the Ark of the Covenant and the sacred vessels. They also offered numerous sacrifices of sheep and cattle. When the Ark of the Covenant was placed in the most holy place, a cloud filled the temple with the glory of the Lord. Solomon declared that the construction of the temple was the fulfillment of God's promise, and urged the people to obey. Before the entire congregation of Israel, Solomon prayed that the temple would be a place where God would hear the prayers and supplications of the people. He asked that, when they sinned, God would forgive and restore them if they prayed toward the temple. He prayed that the temple would become a place of salvation for all nations. provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 9. King Solomon's achievements. After King Solomon completed the construction of the temple and the royal palace, God reaffirmed his covenant with Solomon. God said that, if Solomon obeyed, David's dynasty would last forever. But, if he disobeyed, Israel would be destroyed. Solomon gave Hiram, king of Tyre, 20 cities in Galilee, and received materials for the temple construction. Hiram was displeased with the cities, but sent Solomon 120 talents of gold. Solomon built Millo, the walls of Jerusalem, Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer. He also built grain storage cities and garrison cities for chariots and cavalry. In doing so, Israel's military power was further strengthened. He also built a palace for the daughter of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He built ships at Eloth near the Red Sea, and amassed wealth through maritime trade. King Hiram of Tyre sent skilled sailors to assist Solomon in his trade. Solomon offered burnt offerings and thank offerings 3 times a year. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 10. The Queen of Sheba visits Solomon. Hearing of Solomon's wisdom, the Queen of Sheba visited Jerusalem. She brought with her a large retinue of attendants, spices, gold, and precious stones. Solomon answered all of her questions without hesitation. The Queen of Sheba was amazed by Solomon's wisdom, palace, food, and officials. She admitted that the rumors she had heard were not even half true. The Queen of Sheba praised Solomon's people and officials, and she praised the Lord, Solomon's God. She gave Solomon 120 talents of gold, many spices, and precious stones. In return, Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba many gifts. King Hiram of Tyre's ships brought gold, algum wood, and precious stones from Ophir. Solomon used the algum wood to build railings for the temple and palace, as well as to make musical instruments. King Solomon's annual income was 666 talents of gold. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 11. Solomon's heart turns from the Lord. King Solomon loved foreign women, and his heart turned away from God. The Lord warned Israel not to follow foreign gods. But Solomon loved foreign women, and took them as wives. Solomon had 1,000 wives, but they led him to idolatry. Solomon served Ashtoreth and Milcom, and did not fully follow the Lord. The Lord appeared to Solomon twice, and warned him. But he did not change his mind. The Lord said he would divide Solomon's kingdom, and give it to his servants. God did not do this during Solomon's lifetime, out of consideration for his father, David. God said he would divide the kingdom of Israel during the reign of Solomon's son. Solomon's servant Jeroboam rebelled against Solomon. Solomon tried to kill him, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt. After Solomon died, his son Rehoboam became king. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 12. The rebellion of the northern tribes. After King Solomon died, his son Rehoboam succeeded him. The people, dissatisfied with his harsh rule, revolted. As a result, the kingdom of Israel split into the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel. The Israelites asked Rehoboam to lighten the heavy yoke of Solomon's reign. But Rehoboam threatened to impose an even heavier yoke. Ultimately, the kingdom split, and Jeroboam became king of the northern kingdom of Israel. Due to Rehoboam's mismanagement, the northern kingdom of Israel separated from the Davidic dynasty. To prevent the people from traveling to Jerusalem, Jeroboam made a golden calf and had them worship it. Jeroboam appointed priests from among the common people, not from the tribe of Levi. He also created his own festivals outside of God's ordained ones, and instructed the people to offer sacrifices. Jeroboam's actions led the entire Israelite nation into great sin. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 13. Condemning the Bethel altar. During the reign of King Jeroboam, God sent a prophet from Judah to Bethel. The prophet rebuked idolatry and prophesied the destruction of the altar by King Josiah. When Jeroboam tried to arrest the prophet, his hand withered. The prophet's prayer restored his hand, but Jeroboam did not repent. The prophet refused Jeroboam's invitation and, on his way back, was deceived by an old prophet in Bethel and ate food. This was disobeying God's command to eat nothing there. As God's judgment, the prophet was killed by a lion. The old prophet buried the body of the prophet of Judah in his own tomb. Even after this, Jeroboam did not turn from his wicked ways. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 14. The death of Jeroboam and Rehoboam. Abijah, son of Jeroboam, king of northern Israel, fell ill. Jeroboam sent his wife in disguise to the prophet Ahijah. Ahijah warned that disaster would come upon Israel because of Jeroboam's sins. He also prophesied that Jeroboam's son Abijah would die. When Abijah died, all of Israel mourned for him. Jeroboam reigned over Israel for 22 years and then died. Jeroboam's son Nadab succeeded him as king and ruled over northern Israel. During the reign of Rehoboam, king of Judah, Shishak, king of Egypt, attacked Jerusalem. He plundered the temple of Jerusalem and the treasures of the royal palace, and took the gold shields. Rehoboam began to reign over Judah at the age of 41 and ruled for 17 years. There was constant war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. After Rehoboam died, his son Abijam succeeded to the throne and ruled over the southern kingdom of Judah. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 15. Abijam and Asa, kings of Judah. Abijam became king of Judah in the 18th year of Jeroboam's reign and reigned for 3 years. However, he followed in the footsteps of his father, Rehoboam. On the other hand, King Asa became king of Judah in the 20th year of Jeroboam's reign. King Asa reigned for 41 years, doing what was right in the eyes of the Lord and implementing religious reforms. However, King Asa was unable to completely eliminate the high place sacrifices. Nadab and Baasha, kings of Israel. Meanwhile, in Israel, Nadab became king in the 2nd year of King Asa's reign and reigned for 2 years. However, King Nadab was killed due to a conspiracy by Baasha of the tribe of Issachar. After this, Baasha became king and ruled over the northern kingdom of Israel for 24 years. Baasha did evil in the sight of God. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 16. Omri and Ahab, kings of northern Israel. Elah, son of Baasha, became king in Tirzah and ruled over northern Israel for 2 years. But Zimri, the commander of King Elah's army, rebelled. Zimri killed Elah and made himself king. However, his reign lasted only 7 days. Omri, another commander of the northern Israel army, heard of Zimri's rebellion. Omri immediately led his army to Tirzah and executed Zimri. Omri then ascended to the throne as king of northern Israel. Omri's son Ahab committed more evil acts than the other kings. In particular, Ahab married Jezebel, the daughter of the king of Sidon, and worshipped Baal. He also led the Israelites down the path of idolatry, including by erecting an Asherah pole. King Ahab of northern Israel committed a grave sin in the eyes of God. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 17. The prophet Elijah and the widow of Zarephath. The prophet Elijah prophesied to King Ahab that a severe drought would come. He then stayed by the Jordan River and experienced God's amazing providence through ravens. When the river dried up, God sent Elijah to Zarephath in Sidon, a foreign land. There, Elijah begged a poor widow for food. The widow offered Elijah her last remaining food. Then Elijah, empowered by God, rewarded the widow. He performed a miracle that kept the widow's jar of flour and jar of oil from running dry. But the widow's son became sick and died. The widow cried out to Elijah in despair. Elijah took the child in his arms and prayed earnestly to God. God answered, and the child was restored to life. Through this miracle, the widow's faith in the living God grew stronger. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 18. Elijah and the prophets of Baal. During the reign of King Ahab in the northern kingdom of Israel, a drought lasted 3 years. Elijah proposed a contest on Mount Carmel, with 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah, a total of 850 men. They each built an altar and prayed to their respective gods for answers. He declared that the God who answered with fire would be proven to be the true God. The Baal prophets built their altars first and called on Baal all day long. But there was no answer. Elijah repaired the broken altar of the Lord, doused it with water, and prayed. Then, fire came down from heaven and consumed both the altar and the sacrifice. The Israelites who saw this confessed that the Lord was the true God. Elijah captured the prophets of Baal and executed them at the Kishon Valley. Afterwards, Elijah prayed and heavy rain fell. Ahab witnessed all this and acknowledged Elijah's power. However, he remained steadfast in his idolatry. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 19. Elijah on Mount Horeb. Exhausted by King Ahab's threats, the prophet Elijah fled to Beersheba. He despaired and pleaded with the Lord to let him die under a broom tree. At that moment, an angel appeared and encouraged Elijah, offering warm bread and cool water. Strengthened by the angel, he set out for Mount Horeb. Arriving at Mount Horeb, Elijah stayed in a cave, eagerly awaiting God's word. Even after the fierce wind, the terrifying earthquake, and the blazing fire, God remained silent. God answered Elijah with a gentle, still, small voice. God told Elijah to return to Damascus and anoint Hazael as king of Aram. He then commanded him to appoint Jehu as king of Israel. And God commanded Elijah to appoint Elisha as his successor as prophet. Elijah met Elisha, gave him his mantle, and made him his disciple. Elisha slaughtered his oxen and distributed them to the people, then followed Elijah. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 20. The battle between Aram and Israel. Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, led his army against Israel. Ben-Hadad besieged Samaria and demanded that King Ahab surrender. At first, Ahab was willing to comply. But, as Ben-Hadad's demands became more and more severe, he resisted. At this time, a prophet appeared, delivering God's word and foretelling Israel's victory. Ahab surprised the Aramite army with a small force and won a great victory. The following year, Ben-Hadad attacked again, but this time the Israelites defeated him. Ahab captured Ben-Hadad. He was promised the return of the Israelite cities in exchange for his release. However, God was angry that Ahab spared Ben-Hadad. Ahab's disobedience foretold that it would ultimately lead to his life and the destruction of his people. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 21. Naboth's vineyard. Naboth the Jezreelite owned a vineyard. King Ahab coveted it. King Ahab suggested to Naboth that he sell his vineyard. But Naboth refused, saying that he could not sell his ancestral inheritance. Ahab was deeply displeased and became ill. Queen Jezebel comforted Ahab and hatched a scheme. She sent letters to the elders and nobles, instructing them to frame Naboth. False witnesses testified that Naboth had cursed God and the king. As a result, Naboth was stoned to death. Upon hearing the news of Naboth's death, Ahab immediately went to take possession of the vineyard. At that time, Elijah appeared to Ahab and proclaimed God's judgment. Elijah said that Ahab's house would be destroyed. He also prophesied that dogs would lick Ahab's blood, where Naboth's blood was shed. After hearing Elijah's words, Ahab tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, fasted, and repented. Seeing Ahab's humility, God promised that disaster would not come during his time. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. 1 Kings chapter 22. The death of King Ahab. Ahab, king of the northern kingdom of Israel, allied with the southern kingdom of Judah to reclaim Ramoth-Gilead from Aram. They went to war, but Israel was ultimately defeated, and Ahab was seriously wounded. He disguised himself and went into battle to conceal his identity. The prophet Micaiah had already prophesied Ahab's death. And, just as he had predicted, Ahab met a tragic end. His body was taken to Samaria, the capital of Israel, for burial. Ahab's son, Ahaziah, succeeded him as king. But his reign was not smooth either. During his lifetime, Ahab committed acts that were extremely evil. In particular, he spread Baal worship in Israel through Jezebel, an unforgivable sin. Ahab's son, Ahaziah, also worshipped Baal. He also imitated his father's evil deeds, incurring God's wrath. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day.